Hey there, y'all. I know that flow arts tends to focus a lot on movement, but I think that we also need to emphasize the brain in the whole brain and body part of things. So today I want to share with you some books that I have read that have been enormously helpful to me on my flow journey. Drex here from Drex Factor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain. And today we're going to go deep into Brainland, and I'm going to share with you my top 5 books that have had a powerful influence on me as a flow artist. Before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultrapoi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all of these amazing businesses and what they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I have down in the description of this video. And special thanks to non-business friends of the channel, Johnny Howard and Lain Mochinsky. Thank you both so very much for your support for my work and my mission. So this is not the video I thought I was going to be putting out today. I actually have a pretty major announcement that is going to be coming out very soon. But there were 1 or 2 pieces to it that still weren't quite ready, so I'm going to be pushing back that announcement to next week. And in the meantime, it's been very, very cold in DC. And I have been staying inside way too much because just straight up, I'm not very good at handling the cold. It's very strange for somebody whose ancestors came from above the Arctic Circle, but here we are. So I'm going to try and put together some things that I've had on the back burner for a while and try and do something good for myself in the process. This will be another one of my walk-in talks. It is still cold outside though, so I'm going to have to bundle up. So let me do that right now. All right, are y'all ready for this? Because I'm definitely not ready for this. Yep, that's about what I expected. It is currently, I believe, in the 20s out here in DC, which is like probably -2 or 3 Celsius, I want to say. Yeah, good times. Again, I do not like the cold. All right, so the genesis of the idea for this video really came from the fact that there's a book that I recommend very, very frequently to other flow artists, and I realized it's not the only book that I've read that has had a pretty big impact on who I am as an artist, and more specifically who I am as a flow artist. And we'll get to that book a little bit later on, but I decided to kind of compile some of my picks for what are the most powerful books that I've read as a flow artist, and kind of come at them in roughly chronological order. And just so I can disappoint people from the get-go, Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi's book about flow is not on this list because I've never read it. I'm sorry. Someday I'll get to it, I promise. All right, so the first book on this list is going to seem like kind of a strange pick, and it is Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. So for those of you that don't know, I am pretty much a lifelong comic book fan. I discovered them as a teenager, and they remain one of my favorite pastimes and one of my favorite forms of fiction to explore. And Scott McCloud in the 90s wrote this absolutely fantastic book in comic book form, kind of breaking down the art of comics, how they work, why they're important, and why they have had so much staying power in so many cultures across the planet. The entire work is fantastic, but most specifically, there's a chapter in there about the artistic process that he calls the 6 steps. And it is one of the most revolutionary theories of the creative process that I have ever encountered in my life. And I still reread it on occasion to this day because I'll pick up something different each time and realize that I'm in a different stage in my creative journey, or that I'm exploring a new avenue of my creative journey. It's also helped me get a deeper understanding of some of the things that I appreciate in multiple arts, not just flow arts. Like when I hear music that I really like, I can point to a thing that the artist is doing along their own creative journey. And that in turn kind of gives me a new appreciation for what it is that I'm picking out about their work that really appeals to me too. Next up, something that I suspect will be a little bit nearer and dearer to a lot of people's hearts, and that is This Is Your Brain on Music. Now, this is an incredibly expansive book that talks about the role that music has in human culture and the human brain, and goes really, really deep into some of the neurobiology of what exactly music does for people. It also includes the first reference I ever read to Anders Ericsson's work on what is now known as the 10,000 hour rule, which there are some people that are going to get on me in the comments here, and I'm going to push back. So something to bear in mind here is that Anders Ericsson has never, ever referred to it as being a 10,000 hour rule. Literally, his research showed that of students of music that had excelled in their studies, the average number of hours of practice that they had engaged in order to get there was around 10,000. It wasn't a hard and fast rule. It was just an average. And really, the takeaway from that research wasn't that 10,000 hours equals expertise. It was that you need to practice a lot to master something. I don't think anybody would object to that framing of it. Unfortunately, Malcolm Gladwell popularized this concept as the quote-unquote 10,000 hour rule in his book Outliers. Interestingly enough, I think it was on the Freakonomics podcast, Anders Ericsson actually confronted Malcolm Gladwell about this. It was just like, this is a gross oversimplification of my work. Why did you do this? And Gladwell's response was basically, oh, well, the whole point of this was that I wanted to show that in order to get 10,000 hours of practice, people need to have other people supporting them. Which, I've read Outliers. Gladwell did not connect those dots very well. So yeah, This Is Your Brain on Music is well worth a read. Overall, not only for its wonderful kind of treatment of music in the human brain, but also because it does a good job of summarizing this research in a way that Malcolm Gladwell did not. Next up, the book that inspired this entire topic, Mastery by George Leonard. Now, I have recommended this book so many times over the years that I kind of feel like I'm a broken record about it, but hey, I'm going to do it one more time. Mastery is the book that changed my life and is probably more responsible than anything else for me becoming proficient at poi. Among the important takeaways I took from that book was recognizing that one of the reasons that I never excelled at anything in my life was that, well, as soon as it became hard or I reached a plateau, I kind of lost interest. And rather than learning to become comfortable sitting on the plateau, that instead I would move on to something else, looking for that excitement of the initial rush of getting a thing down and acquiring all the right equipment for it. Which I'm willing to bet a lot of you out there are going to recognize as perhaps your own pattern in acquiring new skills too. And hey, no judgment there. But upon reading this book, I did decide that, you know what, maybe I will try these things out. Maybe I will make a commitment to practice regularly, whether I'm super motivated to do it or not. Maybe I will make a commitment to being willing to engage as a beginner in multiple things rather than trying to always think of myself as being on top of things. And then 10 years later, here we are. So yeah, if like me, you've always harbored that desire to be really, really good at something, Mastery will give you the tools to get there. I will also stick a pin in this because I've seen some discussion around it that leads me to believe that some parts of the book may not have aged as gracefully as I had hoped. So I need to reread it and see if indeed this is the case. But suffice it to say, as of right now, I will say that Mastery is probably the most important book that I read in my flow journey, and it is the one that I recommend the most on this list by far. Next up, there did come to be a moment several years into my journey as a flow artist when I decided that it was going to become my full-time gig. And when I did so, I read a lot of books on how to run a small business, and one of them definitely stood out as being the most helpful, even if it is also one of the most annoying reading experiences I've ever had. And that book is the EMyth Revisited. So, the thesis of this book can be broken down as such, that quite a lot of people who are great craftspeople also think that they would be amazing at running a business. And so they will start businesses and quickly discover that those businesses require different areas of expertise that they don't necessarily have. They may know how to design a great product, but they don't have a clue how to market it. They don't have a clue how to interview and find the right people to help keep their company running. It's a problem. So ultimately the conclusion of the EMyth Revisited is that if you're going to go start a business, you have to think of it not just in terms of I'm going to be the one in charge and I'm going to do so much better job than everybody I've ever worked with. You have to think of it in terms of what are all the roles that I need to make this project a success? You need to write out an org chart. You need to design your business from the ground up and realize that there are areas of expertise you don't currently have. And you either need to learn them or you need to find people who can do them for you and are as passionate about your mission as you are. Now, all that said, this book suffers from the exact same problem that most business literature does, in that there's a germ of a really, really good idea in it, and the rest of it is the author's self-aggrandizement to the point of absolute absurdity. He compares himself to Jesus at one point. I kid you not. So if you want to, you can dive in and read that one cover to cover. You may find it as obnoxious as I did. If so, I highly recommend finding a summary of it somewhere online instead. You're not going to miss out on much. And now for the final entry on this list. We're going to go with a book that's going to feel like it's another big left turn, and that is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. So, for those of you who know of Daniel Kahneman, you probably know that he won the Nobel Prize in economics, despite the fact that he's not an economist, he's a psychologist. And specifically a psychologist who's been working in the field of behavioral psychology now for, goodness, what, 50, 60 years? Thinking Fast and Slow is a summary of that research. And if that sounds like a very, very big elephant to swallow, that's because it is. It is one of the hardest books I've ever read. Kahneman's research centers around the fact that essentially we take something for granted when we think about large groups of people doing things, and that is the idea that they're all rational actors. The field of behavioral psychology kind of throws that out the window. Like, there are definitely cases in which human beings do act rational, but by and large, we have some things in our psychology that can be thought of as being as much bugs as features that have just become a part of how we think. And it means that occasionally we kind of outsmart ourselves, or perhaps we need to. This is really important for both anybody that runs a small business to understand exactly how to interact with the people that are interacting with our businesses, as well as people that work in the arts, because quite frankly, a lot of what confuses us about engaging with our audience is just stuff that is built into the human brain that we need to have to kind of rewire. I will also caution you, this book is easily the most difficult read on this entire list. It is dense. It will make your brain process things that are incredibly difficult. And of course, it forces you to reevaluate the ways that you think yourself. But I will tell you, I think that it's worth it. So yeah, those are my top 5 picks for the books that most influenced me as a flow artist, or most influenced my flow journey. I would highly recommend all of them. I will include links to each of them down in the description if you want to check them out for yourselves. What books have influenced you all as flow artists out there? I know that Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi's book is going to pop up a lot in those recommendations. I am prepared for that. I'm also going to be prepared for a lot of people to be like, how have you not read that book? But here we are, right? If you got anything out of this video, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to keep the conversation going and help my channel grow. This video would not be possible if it were not for the wonderful support of all of these nice people right here. These are my Flow patrons, and they, along with the people listed down in the description, help to make this video and all the videos on this channel possible. If you would like to sign up to support me in my mission of bringing flow arts and poi spinning to the wider world and helping people connect with their brains and their bodies as creative individuals, I'd really appreciate it. You can do that by heading on over to patreon.com/DirectsFactorPoi and signing up. There you can get early access to all of my content and a host of other awesome rewards. So I hope you are inspired to sign up to contribute. Thank you in advance. All right, so fortunately this walk was not nearly as bad as I was expecting it to be. I thought that I would be just a block of ice getting home, and I am not. Yay, I'm happy to report that. Yeah, keep an eye out for that announcement coming out next week. And in the meantime, wherever you happen to be, I hope you have an opportunity to flow, because it's good for you. And I will see you all with a new video on Wednesday. Peace.